Hi, Field Experience friends. Today I'm going to talk to you about The Volunteer Project by Darren Kaiser and just a few thoughts and recommendations about the book and what I thought after reading it. So first off, my thoughts on the book. I think that this book would be useful for any form of leadership and not just for those who lead leader or volunteer organizations. However, I really did appreciate the focus that was specifically on the church and the volunteers within the church and how to best serve them and love them well. I appreciate that the book offers the resources of a survey, something that's been researched well with great questions to ask and to consider already kind of built into a package that as a church you could utilize as a annual tool, upkeeping tool, entrance tool to your volunteer base to be able to keep tabs on what's working, what's not working, just to keep from the perspective of volunteers of what's going well. Sometimes I think from a leadership standpoint, just the bird's eye view of what you think you're leading may not be going as well as you think it is. Or maybe it may be going better than you think it is. So just gaining that knowledge through that resource, I think is great. And it's such a cool tool that this book offered. I also really appreciated their goal of the book of having a zero recruitment model for volunteerism. I think that's a great model to strive for. I don't think anyone really goes into ministry to work on recruitment, although it is an aspect of ministry that is definitely something a part of it. But if we could work towards not having that aspect of the job, why not focus more on the gospel and actually doing the work of the ministry instead of recruitment? So great job on the book's goal, and I think they did a great job of meeting that goal as far as providing resources, tips, strategies, things like that in order to accomplish that. The other thing was there are 4 mindsets in order to accomplish that goal: excellence, mission, appreciation, and invitation. Each one of those had significant takeaways of sort of just changing your thinking or challenging your thinking already within ministry. And then providing scriptural backing for each one of those. I think that was pretty key with excellence, mission, appreciation, and invitation. Some of my key takeaways, they gave us tons of strategies. They gave tons of reasons to do what they're suggesting, whether that be through experience or surveys or statistics or just even scriptural referencing. But some of those key takeaways that I had were, first of all, make it fun. I think, at the heart of what we're doing, if it's not fun, there may be something that we're not doing right or not doing well. I'm not saying that there can't be times when seriousness needs to take place, or that we can't have, reverent moments and things like that. But in the context of what we're talking about with children or working with youth or working with volunteers, it needs to be fun and encouraging that sense of excitement or, just engagement with who you're ministering to, and really just sharing the joy of the Lord with those people that you're ministering to, whether that be the volunteers or the actual, people children, youth, adults, anything like that, having fun. So I love that key takeaway. The other thing is just to appreciate the time and energy and talents of your volunteers. I think, getting into ministry, especially volunteering a lot, you get the effects of what it's like when you're volunteering for something that isn't valuing your time. It's like, I don't do this full time. I'm not getting paid for this full time. You are, and I need you to maybe better value that time, energy, and efforts that I'm putting forth. And so it just gave that good perspective of, okay, this is important for your volunteers. How do you do that well? How do you serve them well? Things like starting the meetings on time. When we say we're going to meet up, we're meeting at that time, not just because we've said so, but because it matters and sets a good precedent. And, going back to those 4 mindsets, it falls into that excellency. And those things, you see those things trickle down, whether that through the volunteers or even through those people attending those events. Just valuing the roles of your volunteers and, valuing the energy that they're putting forth and the talents that they have. Pretty important. The other thing was, another takeaway that I had was the goal is for long-term volunteers. And those long-term volunteers are those people who are being fulfilled, supported, appreciated, and empowered as volunteers. I think we can have short-term goals. We don't know what seasons that people may be going through or coming to us with, and maybe they're there for a year or two, but definitely supporting them, equipping them, fulfilling what they need, empowering them is definitely going to help in their decision making, whether or not they may stay or not. But I think that's super important to keep in mind that our goal is for a long term, and so that means with the volunteers that you have, that's your focus, which is important, and you're not focused on just getting new recruits, but you're focused on also keeping those who you have and serving them well, and allowing them to also do some of that recruiting for you through the different things of making sure that they're appreciated, that it's fun, engaging, and worth their time and energy. So this is just a few key takeaways that I had. Another thing that Darren Kaiser in this volunteer project put forth was helping volunteers find their place in the vision. Making sure that they're called and gifted to the role that they would like, rather than just falling into this place of just putting people anywhere, or even allowing them to just say, hey, I've done this in the past, this is what I do, but really considering, okay, what giftings has God given this person? What passions do they have? Allowing a little bit of a process to take place rather than, oh, we have a need, we're going to fill it. So I think that takes time. Also just intentionality, getting to know your volunteers more on a personal level and a spiritual level, and not just viewing them as plugs to the holes that you see in the problems that may be prevalent in your ministry. So that was something that was really good, I think, to keep in mind moving forward. The other thing that I thought was really good was bringing the numbers to the volunteers' attention, allowing them to see the data. And just it doesn't always have to be growth as in numbers. It could just be things like, hey, we gave out so many Bibles, or even salvations, or single salvation, letting them know that the work of the ministry took place while they were there. And because of their efforts in meeting their role, so-and-so was able to do their role, and the gospel was proclaimed and someone came to salvation. So I think sharing those numbers at any chance that we can get, sharing those stories, providing what actually, because that person, maybe their job is just making snacks, and they don't actually get to see what the ripple effects of that ministry have. And so making sure that you're providing that feedback to your volunteers, so good, and such a key aspect of supporting and loving your volunteers well. So I kind of mentioned earlier about sending those surveys, or the surveys that this book and organization provided. I think sending those out at different times to your volunteers is great. And then it gave more information on that, or just making your own. And it could just be even a simple poll, like, how do we feel about these colors in the kids room, or how did we feel that our startup went today? Just things that went well, two things that went well, one thing that could have gone better, stuff like that. Can really allow your volunteers to have input, to have say, to have value within the ministry, and have voice. And allowing them to speak, but also in a controlled, organized way that, you're still able to make decisions that do need to be made as sort of an overseer of that ministry. So great tip there. But that another aspect of that is allowing feedback to take place, and sometimes that feedback can be good, and sometimes that feedback it can be negative. And so learning how to deal with that, and learning how to take some of that feedback and maybe even give some of that feedback as well. Sharing, hey, maybe I like that idea, it just didn't fit. It just doesn't fit into the mission and direction that we're going. And that could be just an opportunity to, reestablish what that mission is, that your vision is for that ministry that you're going for. So always an opportunity to teach, taking that feedback to heart, but not letting it get you down that it's your fault or anybody's fault, but that we're working together towards something greater than just ourselves. The other great tip here is just to remember to show gratitude and appreciation for your volunteers, whether that's a Christmas card, a thank you note, a text, a picture of something that you saw, or just even a small story, or it could just be a personal, hey, really, really appreciate that you did that for me. It made me feel, blank. Always love throwing gratitude like confetti. I think it's much needed, and really does help create that more fun, positive atmosphere that you need in your ministry. The one key thing here, I think it mentioned, was training should happen early, happen often, and continue to happen repeatedly. Even we want to get to the place where your training is allowing other people to train other people, and for that training to be consistent. If it takes a long time for systems to take place, to run efficiently, and that takes monitoring, that takes retraining, that takes communicating what's going well, what's not going well, and then of course retraining, and then taking feedback. So great point there. One of the questions here is, if you could talk to the authors, what would you tell them about their book? I would definitely tell the authors that their book is a great platform for leaders to love their people well. It reminded me a lot of the Shepherd's book that we read earlier in the way of the Shepherd, and how it does just come down to love, loving your people well. And it's going to cost you something, and so just keeping that in mind, that being the ultimate goal of loving people well. And so this book just great strategies, great tips, great broadening ideas of, this is how you love people well. And these things are proven ways that people feel loved. And, maybe this person didn't feel loved that way, but because their personality is different or their gifting is different. But here's maybe a different approach or strategy to consider in loving them well. Another question here is, are there ideas worthy of trying? Why or why not? I think each one of these ideas is going to lead to greater and greater success. For all of these ideas, I've already used some of those in my classroom or work or in the home or any other leadership role that I've undertaken. They all work. The ones that I read and recognized, that's a great one. It does work. But you do have to consider the way in which each one of those ideas is carried out will probably vary based on your leadership context and level of creativity, as well as your consistency in that strategy. But the reality is that humans haven't changed much, and nor do the strategies by which leading them well and loving them well. People are always going to appreciate being appreciated. Regardless of that, if that person takes a voiced comment or a note or a gift or just time with them, in what they're doing. So great job. I think one of the ideas, the question here is, what ideas have you tried and worked and failed? One of the ideas that I've definitely used a lot is just the numbers. I think it's a game changer when you start being able to assess, have actual data, and to be able to share that data and allow that, recognition, allow them to process what that data means for them. Because you may be thinking about that data in a completely different way, but hearing what they have to say about what that data means, I think that's a huge one, a big motivator for people. People want to see results, and people want to see change, and they want to see what they're doing is actually having an impact. So not being afraid to share that data, whether that is data that may be showing things in a negative direction, that's still positive, because that shows what you're doing may not be working, but it gives you honest feedback in what to do from there. So I think it's always good to share data, and just to be honest. So overall, volunteer project, 5 out of 5, great job. Great read, definitely a resource that I'm going to be using in the future, just because there were so many strategies there just to keep in mind and to keep reflecting back as I move forward and leading others well. So thank you so much, Darren Kaiser, and have a good one. Thank you so much. Looking forward to eventually maybe getting into class here in the field experience, but thank you. Bye.